I've spent over $50,000 on sales training from every guru you can name. And here's what I learned. Almost everything they taught me kept me stuck closing 30% of prospects. And when I took a look at my best calls, the ones where I made the most money and closed the highest percentage, I realized I wasn't following any of the guru's advice on those calls. I was doing something completely different. So in this video, I'm gonna break down why the methods that worked 10 to 15 years ago, they just don't work anymore. And I'll show you what separates 5K per month closers from 50K per month closers. And I can talk about this because I've closed over $8 million in high ticket sales across 7,000 plus sales calls. And right now, my students are making more money by doing what I'm saying. Look at my student James, who went from making 5K per month to over 40K per month in commissions in only 4 months. Now, most sales coaches won't teach you what I'm about to reveal because it's just easier to sell you a script and say, hey, just follow this. But scripts create robots, and robots don't make 40K per month. But before I show you what works, you need to see what you've been taught is broken. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So first, let's understand why old sales gurus keep you broke and keep you stuck. Now, I'm not saying that everything a sales guru or the old sales gurus taught is completely wrong, but the fact of the matter is, it's not a complete system that works with modern buyers today. Why is that? Modern buyers have more information, they've hopped on more sales calls, and they can feel these techniques. And if they feel these techniques, they're gonna put you in the salesperson box. No bueno. So let's take a look at probably the biggest ones you've heard of. So first, oldie and a goodie, this is good old Grant Cardone. So what Grant Cardone, if I can spell, what he really goes over is high energy and always push, right? Like push, always be closing. Now, it's good to have an extra gear to push when you need to push, but if you're always a hammer looking for a nail, sometimes you're gonna hit a baby. So yes, this can work if you're only talking to nails, but most people are not nails. They're not easily pushed into things. So if the only thing you can do is push and just have high energy, there's a big section of people that you're not able to close, okay? So that's why it's not really a complete system. Okay, the next one you probably heard of is Tony Robbins. Now, Tony Robbins is really good going over NLP, okay? The issue is, especially in a one-to-one context, NLP can be very complicated and it can overcomplicate the process. I know, and I won't mention their name, but one person in particular who like talks about NLP selling, we were on the same offer, and there were multiple times where I would follow up with leads that he didn't close, and I would ask them why they didn't buy, and it's just because they didn't know what they were even there to buy, right? It got so complicated that it was hard for him to even convey why they should buy. Now, I'm not saying he didn't close anybody, because he definitely did close people, but he didn't close the amount of people he should have closed just because he made it overcomplicated. And a lot of Tony Robbins tactics are good for one-to-many, not one-to-one. So in a sales process, I'm selling one-to-one to an individual, not one-to-many. So there's going to be different tactics just in general that you go ahead and use. Okay. And then last one is going to be Jeremy Miner. So he does NEPQ. Now, personally, I've sold for Jeremy Miner for, over 2 years. So there are pluses and minuses to NEPQ. I will say that I made the most money when I didn't listen to Jeremy's trainings, and the sales team who didn't listen to Jeremy's trainings made the most amount of money. Why? Because NEPQ, at least for a high ticket coaching, high ticket improvement, like more of a sophisticated audience, tended to be too rigid and wasn't able to convey what we needed to convey. We weren't able to get people to move the way that we needed to get people to move. And really when it all clicked for me is when I really went back. I really wanted to dissect what made me close the most, right? Because it's good to take all this theory, but going back and actually watching your own calls and watching what actually moved people, it wasn't following any of these things to a T. It wasn't following Robbins, Cardone, Miner, NEPQ. It wasn't following any of that to a T. It was actually being able to get deeper on their actual identity level, like being able to talk to who they are as a person and who they want to become. And none of these people that I've seen really talk to it on any real level. Now, Jeremy's talked about it a little bit since I left the company. Odd how that popped up, but not on any real detailed level. So let's go through the different methods that you could be following outside of the gurus. Okay, so method number one that's probably going to keep you stuck is script-based selling. Now, why does script-based selling keep you stuck? For most, it's going to be robotic. Now, why is it robotic? Because you're too determined on just following the script, saying the next thing that is in your script rather than actually connecting with your prospect. Now, the script the structure, whatever it is that you're using, it should not be rigid. It should be a roadmap to get there, but it shouldn't be a direct turn-by-turn directions. It is a guideline to get you there. And as somebody who's sold for Jeremy Minor for over 2 years and used NEPQ to a T for a very long time, I will say this is the biggest thing that really holds us back. It can stop you from being human because it can be very rigid. And that's the issue. Because if you're talking to somebody and they can sense that you're following a process, you're following a script, you're not really relating to what they're saying, you're not really able to connect with them, then they're going to put you in a salesperson box. And a really good example of this is when I had somebody who I role played with, like one of my students, just a few days ago, and they're role playing, and the person said something like they're role playing an offer, a biz op offer, get more time, get more money. And the prospect in this role play said, when I was younger, my dad wasn't there for me, and that made me feel really shitty. So I don't want to be that same way for my child, but I am right now. Okay. Something that is very painful. And all he said in a very flat tone was, interesting. Next question. If you do that, if somebody just tells you like, oh, I have cancer, and your response is a very blank, non-emotional, interesting, the likelihood that that person wants to keep on opening up to you is almost next to nothing. So you need to be able to be human. You need to be able to break out of your script. Okay. So that's why purely just basing your process off of a script and being so dialed in that you have to say the exact words every single time will keep you stuck. Okay. It'll get you to a certain point, but it's going to be hard to grow past that. Okay. The next thing that will keep you broke is just focusing on the features and the benefits of whatever it is you sell. Now, I'm not saying you can't talk about the features and benefits. Obviously, they need to know what you're selling. But if this is your main selling point, you just don't understand how people actually buy. There's been so many times where I've been on an offer and they were constantly changing what the deliverables were. So I kept it super, super high level. I didn't go into much details on all the features and the benefits, and people still bought. The reason is because people don't buy based off of features and benefits. They buy based off of a transformation, what they actually get on a deeper level. They buy based off of transformation of really who they are now, right? This little person, and they're sad, and you're able to transform them into who they can be. Now they happy. Okay. So you just focusing on the features and benefits, why you do need some features and benefits, it really misses the main thing that moves people, which is this transformation and this person who they want to be, and running away from this person who they are right now, who they don't want to be. If you're able to tap into this emotion, it really doesn't matter too much on the features and benefits. Now, you can't speak nonsense at them, but you'll be able to get people to move so much more without going into all the details. Because here's the issue. If you just focus purely on features and benefits, is you can be wrong. So for example, if they think that a certain feature and benefit needs to be this way, and you're going into all these details and you're going into all this technical stuff, you can say the thing that will unsell them, because they have this preconceived notion in their mind that it should be a certain way. But the problem is they don't even know what they need because they've never been this person before, right? They've never been the person who they want to be because you're selling a transformation. So you want to focus on the features, but just enough to show them that it'll get them the transformation rather than you going all in on the features and benefits. Because really, ideally in your sales call, your presentation should be no longer than 5 to 10 minutes max. Okay. That is it. If it's any longer than that, then you're probably focusing way too much on features and benefits, and most likely you are unselling your prospects rather than actually selling them. Next, now we're starting to get a little bit better, but still not quite everything we need is pain-based selling. So pain is necessary to sell people. People buy based off emotion, but if all that you are is there to offer pain, then it's not going to be enough to get people across the line, because people, human beings in general, believe it or not, are very adaptable, which means that they are very good at dealing with pain. Okay? They're very good at really changing their entire life to deal with pain. So if pain is the only thing you can actually address or pull up, or that's your main focus, you're leaving a big thing on the table, which is people are adaptable and they get used to the pain. We need to get them to actually focus on the positive, who they could be, right? And really be able to tie that into everything and make sure that your solution gets them everything they want. Pain is necessary, but if pain is the only thing you have, it'll only take you so far. Next, we have just objection handle them. Okay. Now, this was made popular by the objection box, oh, good old Billy Boy, which again, I used to be on the same offer as Bill Walsh. And I will just say some of the things he says about how he performed, I just know verifiably just isn't true. But the issue is with just objection handling, like, yes, kind of like the Grant Cardone stuff, is it has a limit. Like, you're a hammer, right? You're a hammer looking for a nail. And if you're talking to a nail, okay, you can close that shit, bro. You can close that nail and it looks cool. It looks cool. You can post it on Instagram, all that fun shit. But the issue is most of the people that you're talking to, like 70+%, like aren't nails. The fact of the matter is if I hopped on a call with you and you tried to just like hammer me, like I promise you, I'm a bigger hammer, bro. Right? So it's like you're gonna have a hard time dealing with any level of prospects who have confidence and won't just be able to be pushed around. So like that's the main issue with just focusing on objection handling. The second biggest issue is you're giving away your leverage, right? So you have no leverage. And the reason is why you had no leverage is because you're gonna have much higher leverage to shift beliefs, because that's all objections are. There is beliefs that are not aligned with them getting their goal. That's what an objection is. It's a belief. But you don't have the leverage to overcome that belief after you drop the price. Why? Because they're in fight or flight, so there's more fear there. There's less trust, okay? So it's going to be harder to overcome. So what you want to do is you want to be able to pre-handle the objections, so you actually have higher leverage to address these beliefs. So that way at the end, you don't just have to deal so much in objection handling. You're able to get people across the line much easier and much quicker. Next, what we have, and this one is becoming more and more popular. I see a bunch of gurus out there selling this, is scriptless selling. So I would say scriptless selling, in my mind, is more than anything else, it is like a marketing ploy. So from everything that I've seen, it's basically just memorize Cole Gordon's structure and just have it in your head, and you don't have a script, right? You basically is open like, hey, you set an agenda and they're like, hey, what's your biggest challenge with XYZ right now? Which is just Cole Gordon's script, basically. And then you just memorize it. So that way you're not following a script. Well, I would say no shit. You shouldn't be having your script up, and you should be actually following what the prospect is saying and being able to have a real conversation and just being able to have a roadmap. So it's not that scriptless selling doesn't work. I would say for the most part, you should be scriptless selling, but the ideal of like, okay, scriptless selling is the way to go, it's just more of a marketing ploy than anything else. Because if you have a good structure, it should be memorized regardless. So you should focus more of the actual structure. Does the structure work versus the fact that it's just scriptless? Because like the scriptless thing of it, like honestly, it doesn't make any sense. It's just you memorizing a process, which even if you had a script, you should memorize it regardless, not go off the script and not have to read the script word for word every single time. So let me get off my soapbox when it comes to scriptless selling, but this is something that I see quite a bit. And I've never seen people in terms of scriptless selling on a high level, like really dive into what motivates people. For example, like on the NLP pyramid. The reason why I focus on identity is because if you take a look at the NLP pyramid, we have all this different motivations down here, which is where most people focus on. They focus on like their environment, okay, like where they're at now, their behaviors, what they're doing now, sometimes their beliefs, right? Like what do they believe? But here at the very top is identity. Now, why does identity go at the top? It's because if we're able to shift this top thing, identity, their beliefs, what they actually believe, will change. Their actions will change, okay? Their environment will change. So the highest leverage, the thing that changes everything, is their identity. And I haven't seen anyone else really dive into sell into the identity. And that's my big problem with most of the other people out there, is because, again, just after selling so many people, that's been the one thing that's really unlocked it for me. And I don't see too many people talking about it. Okay, now that I said, like, hey, I don't see much people talking about it, let me talk about it on like why I feel like identity selling is gonna be the way to go. Okay, so identity selling. So you have to understand that the brain is really broken into like three main parts. Okay, very, very crude brain here, but just work with me. So out here, we have the logical side. Okay, we have the logical side of the brain. This is where a lot of people sell. This is the features and benefits that we're talking about there. You just focus on the logical side of the brain, right? The decision-making part. But the issue is, the deeper that you go into the brain, the more persuasive you are. So this is the most outer side of the brain, okay? So this is the neocortex, basically just the logical side. Next, we have the mammalian side, okay? This is the mammal brain. This deals with emotions. So better salespeople get to the emotions, okay? Like, what are they actually feeling? Their pain. What would it feel like if they could? The consequences, all that's really important. We need to get to the emotions. But again, there's an extra layer. And if we're wanting to close at the highest percentage, because I'm not here just to be better than average, I'm not here to be great, I'm here to be the fucking best, we need to sell to the absolute middle of the brain, the deepest we can, which is going to be identity. Okay, so this is the reptilian side of the brain. So an alligator doesn't feel that they should bite someone. They are a fucking alligator, so they bite people, right? So if we're able to tap into how people view themselves, their identity, and who they need to see themselves as, this is going to be the highest leverage activity you can do on your sales calls. And this will get the overwhelming majority, 90+% of people, to actually buy into what you're selling. So if you want to sell the majority of people, don't sell to the logical side. Yes, get to emotions, but you need to get even deeper into the brain, which is the identity. Okay, so how do we actually dig into their identity? So like number one, we need to step into their current identity. So the fact of the matter is, we need them to actually admit that they are a certain person and they're not where they want to be. So this is where a lot of the pain questions come in. Like, hey, where are you at now? Why is that a problem? And being able to actually label that as an identity. For example, if I'm selling sales training, okay, if I'm selling sales training to somebody and somebody's making 5K per month to 40K and they want to go to 40K per month, their current identity is the 5K per month version of themselves. Okay. Now, whatever is attached to that, it depends on the person. But first and foremost, I need to get them to admit that right now they are the 5K version of themselves. So how do you do this? You can just ask them what they're making now and understand what their pain is, and you can just state it back to them. So right now, we're the 5K per month version who really doesn't like to hop on sales calls. Is that right? Yes, you can get buy-in on their current identity. Number two is we need to understand where they actually want to go, okay? So we have an identity vision. So where do they want to go? Who do they actually want to be? Okay, vision, right? If I can spell. Okay, identity, vision. Okay, who do they want to be? What is the person who they want to be? Ideally, you have a clear transformation. But so if they want to go from 5K to 40K, it's not that they just want to make 5K versus 40K. It's that they need to become the 40K per month version of themselves. And you can really identify this with anything that you're selling. If you're selling something that is like fitness, for example, and they want to lose 40 pounds, okay? They're 200, they want to get to 160. You're going to talk to them not like, hey, how great would it be to lose 40 pounds? I'm sure it'd be great, but how would it feel to be the 160 pound version of yourself? And how does it feel to be the 200 pound version of yourself now? It's just about understanding where they are now and where they want to be and attaching labels and identities to it. Because naturally, this is how we view things. This will get them to actually start to own their current situation and own the fact that they need to be something else in order to get to where they want to be. Okay, so then we have step 3, which we need to identify. Use an identity a lot. The gap, okay? What is keeping this person who's at 5K per month? What is this? What is keeping them at 5K per month and not 40K per month? Oftentimes, you're gonna want to focus on like skills and just what they're doing, but most of the time, what there is there is a belief, okay? A belief of how they're viewing the world. Because if they had all the right beliefs, if they had the right identity, they would just do the activities that they would need, right? It's not that it's complicated. Like, it's simple. The answers are out there, but it's not easy to do it. But if you have the right identity, you have the right beliefs, you get it. So you need to understand like what is actually holding them back. What's prevented them from getting help in the past? So that's what you're going to ask. Like, hey, before we started talking today, like, what have you been out there doing to get XYZ? And if they've been doing nothing, what's actually prevented them from getting the hands-on help? Not external. You can't allow them to blame the external world, because the thing is, if they blame the external, the problem's outside of themselves. They don't need anything to solve it. They can't solve it because it's outside of themselves. We need to get them to focus on internal. So if they blame time, if they blame they didn't have the money, those are not real limiting beliefs. It's how they view their time. It's how they view their money. And if we're able to dig down to get them to admit how they view their time, how they view their money, or how they view whatever it is, being complacent, being comfortable, that is the real issue that's stopping them from being the 40K version of themselves. That's how you pre-handle and overcome these objections before they even come up in the first place. So then step number 4 is we need to understand what needs to die. So naturally, doesn't matter what's growing, things need to die off in order to continue growing. If you have a tree, branches need to be cut. When you're growing into this version of yourself, from the 5K to the 40K per month version of yourself, things that have been keeping you at 5K per month need to die. The same thing is true for your prospects. We need to understand and we need to get out of them what actually needs to die in order for you to grow. And I ask it like this pretty much every time. Once I've identified who they are now, who they need to be, the identities, what's actually holding them back, the belief, I'm always going to say it like this. It's like, hey, naturally, as we grow into the 40K version of ourselves, things need to die off. So what do you need to let go of in order for you to grow into the 40K per month version of yourself? Why that? And the reason why I'm always going to ask why that is because I need them to expand on it, because I am putting something in their mind a bit of like, hey, things need to die off. So I need them to own it. So I need them to actually think about it. So that why question is super, super, super key. Okay. And then then we have step 5 is we need to create urgency. We create urgency through consequences. Now they're at 5K per month. They're the 5K per month version of themselves. They want to be at 40K per month. We know the identity gap, okay, the belief and what needs to die. What we need to do is we need to clump that all together and ask a very, very, very pointed consequence question. Now, how do you know that it's pointed and it actually worked? You should feel it. There should be an audible, right? Like there should be an actual shift in emotion, because really when you're talking about good consequence answers, right? Like what you want from your prospect, it's not a certain type of words, right? The actual words that they say don't matter. It's what's the emotion that they're actually coming across? How are they giving you the emotion? And if they're actually giving you real emotions, then that's a good fucking answer. For example, I remember one call in specifically. I asked him a very, very pointed consequence question. I knew in the back of my head, like, dude, this is gonna fucking hurt, right? I was hyped for it. And I asked it, and he just sat there, and you could tell he's about to cry, and all he said was, holding back tears, not gonna be good. That is a good fucking answer. Now, if you're like being autistic in your head, and you're like, well, he didn't give a detailed explanation, like, yeah, it's not a good answer. But if we actually understand what matters, which is the emotion behind it, that is a really good answer. So you want to ask them, hey, if you don't let go of whatever needs to die, and you stay 5K per month version of yourself for the rest of your life, how's that gonna feel? What's gonna happen? What impact will that have on you? What would be the day-to-day consequences of that? You ask a very pointed consequence question. For example, so if you stay the 5K per month version of yourself who keeps on holding on to this complacency for the rest of your life, what's gonna be the day-to-day impact of that? Okay, I'm challenging, I'm getting out of them, and there should be a good, genuine emotion. Okay, and number 6, you need to be able to position whatever it is you're selling as an identity bridge. So like we were talking about before, if you're just focusing on the features, the benefits, the things that really don't matter to people, we're not going to be able to convert the level that we need to convert. Why? Because we're not focusing on what's important. So if we took all this time to really dive into their current identity, okay, their identity, their vision of what they are doing, like moving forward, the gap, the belief that's holding them back, what needs to die, and then the consequences of staying the same, their same identity, all your presentation needs to convey is the fact that this gap right here, after the belief, that's the thing that bridges it. And if you're able to do that, dude, they'll fucking buy, right? Doesn't matter what you're putting in front of them. They will say, please, sir, take my credit card. Let me give you money, okay? Because when you actually sell to identity, you sell to the deepest level. Objections, they really don't come up. And if they do come up, they're much easier to actually address and overcome. You'll have much better conversations overall. You'll be able to connect better with your prospects. And for me, it's a lot more fun because I really do enjoy connecting with prospects and having these hard conversations, because that's what they are. They are hard conversations. These are hard truths, okay? You never have to lie to people when you're in sales. So these are hard truths that people need to hear. That's what's going to cause them to move. And they need to have an unusual conversation to take an unusual action. Most of the people you're talking to, them buying something, them investing in themselves is an unusual action. So if you feel like that unusual action is going to come about from a usual activity, okay, you're setting yourself up for failure. You need to have an unusual conversation, talking about the real nitty-gritty shit to get them to take an unusual step. And the last thing that I do want to touch on on is why selling to identity is so OP on just pre-handling objections in the first place, okay? Because if you're waiting till the end to handle objections, again, you don't have the leverage. The trust is not built. So if you're waiting till the end to handle objections, you just don't have the trust because you drop the price, they're in fight or flight mode. You're gonna have a much harder time really shifting somebody's beliefs, okay? Because that's really what it comes down to when we're talking about objections, shifting their beliefs. So we always want to do it pre-handling right before we get to drop the price, so we have much higher leverage, okay? So last thing I want to talk about is pre-handling and why it is so key. Like I mentioned before, talking about the objections, if we wait until the end, there's less trust built there. They're more in fight or flight, and they more have a sense they know what you're doing. So you have a lot less leverage when you are trying to shift beliefs, because that's all objection handling is. That's all pre-handling objection is. So if you pre-handle it, it's much easier. You have much more leverage and you get in front of these objections before they happen. So at the end, they don't come up. Or number two, they do come up, but they're so easy to overcome. That's why I'm always big on pre-handling objections, because it just makes your life so much easier. You'll have such shorter calls and you have a lot more fun in calls too. Now, I do enjoy objections, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy just getting them out of the way. So let me take you through the 4 steps on how to actually pre-handle objections. So step number 1 is we need to really understand what we are pre-handling. So we need to identify the actual belief, okay? So we talked about this a little bit before, but a little bit more in detail is there are reasons why they're not doing whatever it is that they hopped on the sales call to do. There's a reason why they haven't gotten help. There's a reason why they haven't bought whatever it is you're selling before. You need to understand that reason. The reason, because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So I'm going to ask them like, hey, before we started talking today, what have you done about going out there and actually getting the help to get whatever it is that they want? And they're going to tell me either an actual belief or they're going to tell me an excuse. They tell me an excuse, then I'm going to sideswipe it and ask the question again. For example, if they say like, okay, I just haven't had the money. Well, hey, can I make a suggestion around that? My favorite quote is by Tony Robbins, right? If you don't know who he is, billionaire life coach, makes all that money. He says like, your biggest superpower as a human being is your ability to be resourceful. Just most people, they're resourceful in how they can't be resourceful. You know what I mean? They'll say yes. So be real with me. Like, what's actually prevented you from getting resourceful so you could get ABC result? Again, I'm going to sideswipe it and ask it again until I actually get the belief. Now, after I get the belief, okay, step 2, I need to clarify. Now, most people think that once they hear a certain belief, they hear a certain emotion or whatever it is, that I know exactly what they mean by that. But if you ask 100 different people what they meant by being comfortable, I'm sure you're going to get 100 different answers. So you need to understand what it means to them. So if they say something like, oh, like I was complacent, okay? What you're going to say is, well, what do you mean by that specifically? Or you're going to say, yeah, and it's like, that can mean different things to different people. What do you mean by that? You want to clarify. The reason why you want to clarify is you want to have a bigger picture of what's actually going on so you don't step on landmines, okay? So if you have a bigger picture, you're not going to step on landmines and potentially say the wrong thing. So, because like what can happen and why some people have a hard time pre-handling objections is because they really go into it blind. They think they know what the objection is, and then they step on a landmine and then they piss somebody off. So in order to not do that, just clarify before you go in. Okay. Number 3, then we need to reframe. Okay. Number 3, we need to reframe. So all reframing is a different way to view the objection, to view the belief. They are viewing the belief through a frame, through a mental frame. I am giving my mental frame and through my words, trying to get them to adopt my mental frame. That is a reframe. Now, the 2 easiest reframes, okay, based off of the NLP, okay, is going to be changing the meaning or zooming out, right? Changing logical levels. For example, how do you change the meaning? If they say that they've been fearful, therefore they haven't invested in themselves, okay? That's what they think fear means. Fear means I don't take action. If I were to shift the meaning, I want them to see fear means that's when you're supposed to take action, because who do you know who grows inside their comfort zone. So this feeling you're feeling right now, it's exactly what you're supposed to feel, right? Because we have two options. We can either allow this to constrict us, or we take this fear, we take this emotion, and we shape it into taking massive action. Which one would you rather do? Oh, I want to shape it. Well, why? So in that example, I'm getting them to shift what the meaning of fear is in their mind, okay? That's a real easy one, is you shift the meaning, okay? Next one, real easy one, is levels. So you change the levels. Now, I often do this a lot more in objection handling than pre-handling, but you can do it in pre-handling as well. For example, if I'm in the objection handling section and they're like, oh, I don't know, this seems like a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. I've already tied off money, all that fun stuff. I'm gonna change levels from talking about the program to talking on a different logical level to who they need to be. So I'll do it something like this. It's like, hey man, I get right now, like you're a little bit fearful, but right now we're not talking about the program. We know the program works. All we're deciding on right now is the type of person who we want to be, because we have two options. We can be the 5K version of ourselves, right? Stay stuck where we have been, or we can step into the 40K version of ourselves and do whatever it is we need to do to actually get to that 40K. So which person would you rather be? Oh, I want to be the 40K per month version. Well, why is that? What if you don't? What if you stay the 5K per month version? That is an example of changing levels, right? They're talking about one thing, but you're zooming out. It's not about that. It's about this over here, okay? And then step number 4 is we want to close the loop. Now, how do we close the loop? We do it through consequences. So just like we talked about before, this is what's really going to push the urgency. So anytime that you're addressing a belief, you want to always tie it off with consequences. Now, this is in pre-handling. This is also in objection handling as well. What happens if you hold on to this way of thinking? What happens if you keep doing this action that's kept you at XYZ place? Okay. Consequences are always going to be the thing that really closes the loop. Now, you just need to make sure you get good consequences. Again, a good consequence is an emotion. So even if they say good words, but there's no emotion behind it, you didn't get a good consequence. So always double down if you don't get emotion. If I ask, what happens if things stay the same? And then they reply with some bullshit like, well, if things stay the same, bro, right? Bullshit answer. You need to dive deeper, okay? Well, yeah, obviously if things don't change, things don't change. But for you personally, what would be the day-to-day consequences if things don't change for you? Get a real answer. And that's how you actually close the loop. Most people know they need to ask consequences. They don't know how to ask the consequences and what they need out of consequences. That's much more key than actual words that you're saying. So hopefully that's been helpful. But knowing a framework and actually executing it on live calls are two completely different things. Most people can understand this theory like me writing it out, but they fail at the actual execution. They might have the right questions, but they don't know how to actually read the prospect's response, what a good answer is, when they need to push back, everything that goes into it, okay? They try to reframe an objection, but it comes across as combative. So if you want to actually go deeper on how to learn this framework and close more sales, watch my free complete 8-hour sales training. Okay, I break down exactly how to read a prospect in real time, control what they're thinking. I go over how to pre-handle objections before they even come up, my exact sales script that closed over $3 million in deals. But knowing a framework and executing on live calls are two completely different things. Most people, they understand the theory, they understand me writing it out, but they actually fail on the execution. They might ask the right questions, but they don't know how to read the prospect, when to push back, and when to actually get better answers. They try to reframe an objection, but it can come across as combative. So if you want to go deeper and learn how to actually use this framework to close more sales, watch my free complete 8-hour sales training. So what I break down in the training is how to actually read prospects in real time, how to control what they're thinking about, how to pre-handle objections 20 minutes before they even come up, my exact sales script that closed over $8 million in deals, and more as well. Okay, the 8-hour training shows you how to execute this all at a high level that can get you to 50,000+ per month. It's completely free, no catch. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.